celestial kaleidoscope. There were no wars, no suffering, and there was no love or wishes. Nothing brought any joy. People used to live eternally, and it happened at the dawn of time, when even the question when didn't exist. Over time they faded away, so to speak, and turned into unfleshly shadows. This was also torturous and miserable existence. And the Great Tengri filled the agonizing existence with meaning and zest for life. Thus, according to the Turkic legend, time and the order of its changes have become known as the calendar. It is more known as the Chinese calendar, in which every year is governed by a certain animal. In fact, a lot of scientists discover some Egyptian and Japanese roots in it. The Turkic origin of the Chinese calendar, like a camel governing our life, and why the age of mushel is connected with Jupiter. This is our attempt to find the answer. Chapter 1. Jovian mushel. On the face of it, there aren't any similarities with the Egyptian calendar, but there is a version that in the 17th century BC, this ancient country was captured and for about 100 years was ruled by nomads from our region. The theory of connection of pyramids and yurts in terms of calendar times will surely enchant the audience, but climatic differences are a drawback. In the country of pharaohs, a year was split into 3 seasons lasting 4 months each. The Egyptians used Sirius, not Jupiter, for their calculations. Japan, as the country of possible provenance, can also be dismissed from the very beginning. The calendar came to Japan from China in around the 3rd century AD. But at first, let's have a look at what is this, or to be more precise, Tengri calendar. In fact, this is one of the most complex calendars. Altai residents called it mushel, the Kyrgyz referred to it as moshe, and the Kazakhs call it mushel. In fact, mushel is a combination of 2 words, which are mushe and in Turkic il or jil, which is a year or a part of it. Earthly life begins in the sky. The main Turkic landmarks are that the moon passes around the Earth, and the Earth needs 1 year to circumflex the Sun. Saturn needs a year for that, and Jupiter needs 12 years. It's not a mere chance that its cycle is the basis for mushel. It is a common belief that Jupiter impacts the climate of the Earth. Thawing, cold, or drought, the nomad's life depends on natural whims. That's why mushel is sometimes called Jovian. The digit of spherical harmony is 12. Many nations see this as a sacred number. According to Sumerian mythology, a fight-off between the chaos and the cosmos lasts for precisely this number of days. The Egyptians have 12 hell gates. A dozen of gods sat solemnly on the Greek Mount Olympus. There were 12 Christian apostles. One can keep counting forever. Take a guess at how many daughters the Turkic goddess Umay had. Of course, 12. All is simple, the vertical line of time and the horizontal line of space. The sun divides the year into 4 seasons, and there are 4 cardinal points. The moon adds 3 phases to each season, including the beginning, the middle and the end, as well as 3 time spans, such as the past, the present and the future. And there are 3 worlds, celestial, terrestrial and underground. And the arithmetic is as such. You multiply 3 by 4 and get 12. In fact, this meant age of adulthood in ancient times. A person's average lifespan was not very long. That's why a 12-year-old boy was considered fairly adult to participate in military assaults and do farming. The Jovian dozen consists of 1 mushel. 5 multiplied by 12 will add up to 60 and will make a full mushel. A transition from one life cycle to another is mushel jas, meaning full renewal. It's a time when a person should be particularly careful of themselves, because for some reason this is a physiologically critical year. There is a custom according to which when people come out of or go into mushel, they have to make presents and give out personal belongings to relieve themselves from the burden of their past. Interestingly, mushel cycles coincide with hormonal realignment. The age of 13 is the time of puberty. At 25, the growth hormone stops secreting. At 37, people normally have a midlife crisis, and at 49, reproductive functions stop operating. Hormones govern human life, modern doctors say. at this transformative time, the future of the next cycle is formed up, so every action might be decisive, ancient philosophers say. Certain attributes have been worked out of connecting with the less-known world, which is interesting, and which defines the future of people. At the age of mushel, it's important that one acts according to the Tengri commandment, that who struck with a stone should be fed, and then the eternal spiral of time will mandatorily neutralize the evil. Chapter 2. Stellar Zoo. When Tengri divided the sky and the earth and turned into eternity, his wife Umay became the present. They had two sons, Ulgen and Yerlik, the future and the past. A myth is a source of reference. A mouse opens both the Chinese and the Tengri calendars. There are a few legends on this topic. They are similar in principle but have different details. The senior Altai deities got tired of earthly confusion and they decided to put some order in its affairs. They have 12, making the animals rule over one half of it that was created by the god of the underworld Yerlik. The other half was governed by Ulgen, the god of light. They arranged a meeting on the bank of Katin river and called the animals. The time of the animals' arrival determined the year they took to govern. The ox was the first to swim across the river. On top of its head sat a mouse, and the mouse was the first to have jumped off on the bank. Mahmud Kashgari recorded one of the versions of this legend. The Turkic Khan wanted to know the date of a war which had taken place long before his reign. The wrong year was announced. To avoid any further rigmarole, he wished to name the years according to the animals which had crossed the river of time. But there is a significant detail. Mahmud Kashgari says that the animals had been crossing not Katun but Ili River. The mythology of old Turks is rooted in the Bronze Age. It originated in the epoch of early Neolithic age, exactly in the region of our Kazakhstan, and precisely in Altai. All this mythology was reflected in cave drawings. Another version says that a camel and a mouse had an argument over who will be the first to see the sun. The mouse climbed on the camel's head and won. The image of the camel is depicted in the center of the Turkic calendar. A camel itself consists of elements and properties which other animals had possessed. The animals got together, and upon dividing the camel's carcass, they each took a part of it to themselves. In fact, camel's ears resemble the ears of a mouse. Its hoof looks like the hoof of a cow. Its chest looks like a leopard's chest. Its lips remind of hare's lips. Its neck is like the snake's neck. It has a horse mane, the back of sheep, monkey's buttocks. The top of the head resembles the head of a chicken. Its thighs look like the thighs of a dog and the tail of a boar. This brutal myth is a story of how the chaos of stagnation was disjointed and brought into order. It turns out that a camel governs our life. From then onwards, the combination of the stellar world of calendar animals has resembled the camel with its outlines. A camel is split all across the sky. It's a spread-out camel. It adds up with the earlier philosophy that time was unified, meaning that the time breathes and expands and then contracts again. The breath of time is the movement of the universe. In other words, it's the Big Bang Theory, whereas the events in this cyclic character reconciles with nomadic travels from winter time to summertime, settlements and a return. The Turks believe that there was no death. There is the eternal flow of life when one goes away to come back. The spiral of time, just like the spiral of the galaxies shown on Hubble's last pictures. The question is, how could they possibly know about this? Chapter 3. River of Time. Kultigin passed away on the 17th day in the year of the sheep. In the 9th month and on the 27th day we organized a funeral feast. We consecrated his burial vault, the carving and the tombstone with an inscription in the year of the monkey, in the 7th month and on the 27th day. The nomadic calendar system is considered to have been invented in late 1st millennium BC when cattle breeding became the main means of survival. But mushel is possibly even older than that. A nomad was a nomad because they survived in any conditions. He lived equally well in any natural cycles in winter, in summer, or in autumn. The Chinese thought of it differently. For them it was the start of field work or the end of field work and so on. Even though the calendars were alike, they were used for different activities. Star-based orientation is important for a nomad. Every so often it came in handy when trying to protect oneself from heat or to survive in harsh conditions. To do so, one needs to predict difficult times such as loss of cattle. To predict these, one needs to find logic behind it. The universe which surrounded people always attracted the nomads. In this changeable world, there is just one constant coefficient. This is the stars. Nomads observe them without coming out of their yurts. The opening in the yurt, known as Shanirak, was a great substitute for astronomical devices. It was actually a portable planetarium. At night, the dome perches help to determine where the stars are moving, and during the day they help to find out how the sun ray moves around. By looking at the sun, a nomad determines when it appeared on the horizon and when it will disappear. And accordingly, he will rearrange his activities, his travels, stopovers, departures and meetings. In other words, he uses the sky exactly the way a European person uses their pocket watch. At the same time, a person living with nature has to rely on animals because their sense of smell is better developed. For Kazakh cattle breeders, animals are their first friends, and secondly, they are their internal companions. Perhaps in China, the calendar appeared together with Buddhism in around the 1st century BC. Interestingly, Buddha Shakyamuni, the founder of the studies, is the lion from the Saka clan, apparently came to India from Central Asia, as a common hypothesis suggests. According to another version, this entire celestially animalistic kaleidoscope was borrowed from the Turkic clan Hunnu in the 3rd century AD. Being Turks, Hunnu preserved traditions connected with their late ancestors. Those were the traditions relating to people who'd lived before. More importantly, the Chinese and the Turkic calendars are quite different. The first point of difference is the beginning of the year. As is well known, the Turkic New Year is the vernal equinox, Nauriz. The Chinese calendar is not connected with any clearly determined date. It is the beginning of a new lunar year, and so it moves around according to certain time frames. Some animals don't coincide either. Leopard is closer to nomads. Chickens and their venomous for sheep droppings could not be included in the Turkic calendar. It's just a bird in there. Fish transformed into a Chinese dragon, sheep became a goat, a field mouse is now more known as a rat, and a hare is now a cat. Understandably, cats were not held in high esteem in the prairie. Nomads didn't grow seeds and didn't need protection from rodents. Researchers say that the Chinese option appeared a lot later than the Turkic one, as it adapted to sedentary lifestyles, some geographical and national aspects. In fact, it's pretty possible that the calendar is an idea which appeared at the same time in many different nations. The Turks and the Chinese lived on either side of the Great Wall of China. They had a mutually beneficial impact on each other, and some Chinese dynasties of either Turkic or nomadic origin. It is clear that in the region between Altai and Ural, there used to be cultural ecumene and a cultural tradition, so the calendar had already existed back then. The foundation of the universe and the laws of the space are all encoded in the Tengri calendar, and the key to its unveiling is contained in ancient myths and traditions. One way or another, we're all living creatures, and namely the eternal sky, the Great Tengri, as Kultegin's writing says, distributes time. People turned to the Great Tengri with a request to give them time. He answered that with time will come death. But after it, life will return, the people answered. We will handle this, they said.